Hello, everyone. Welcome to class today. Today we're talking about user support management. User support management is a little different from a lot of the stuff we've been talking about so far. So far we've really been looking at what it takes to kind of be, lower level, tier 1 support. So today we're going to be looking at more tier 2, tier 3, the higher level type of support that you would that you might find yourself in one day as a part of your user support job. But before we get into that, I have a quick announcement. Coming up, we have our advising day. We do our advising day every year. Many of you may have already gotten an announcement about this in some of your courses. October the 28th at 10:30 a.m. we have our advising day. And with our advising day, that's the day where we try to get as many students as possible in here, get them registered for classes, get them registered to sign up for graduation, get those graduation applications filled out. So what I would like for as many of you all to do as possible is to go ahead and come to that advising day, October 28th, 10:30 a.m. I know not all of you will be able to make it. You have work obligations and various other things. So in the event that you can't make it, please make an appointment with your advisor as soon as possible to try to get all that other stuff out of the way. But for those of you who can make it, for those of you who will be on campus, please try to come to the advising day. I know on that day, some of the classes that meet during that time that we have in the IT department will make accommodations for the students that are in the classes to actually come to the advising day and get advising during that time. So if you're in a class that meets during that time, you're probably already making arrangements to come during that time. I'll be posting an announcement in the Blackboard within the next day or two that will be giving you the full information regarding advising day. I kind of wanted to stagger it out so you get a bit more information there. But anyway, back to the content for today. We're talking about user support management. So the first thing I'd like to discuss is why we study user support management, why we, in this introduction to computer training and support type of class, why we would look at support management as a discipline. And we have several reasons for doing so. One is that I want you all to understand when you are entering a support position as a support specialist or a training specialist, help desk position, I want you to kind of understand the perspective of your support manager. It helps to make things a whole lot easier, a whole lot more simple if you understand where your manager is coming from and like the ideas that they're presenting to you and the different things that they're bringing to the table. If you have an understanding of why user support management is kind of behaving and doing the things that they're doing. If you can kind of see through their perspective a little bit, it, helps to create a bit of harmony in the workplace as far as all that goes. And the other big reason is that, support specialists in smaller organizations, you'll often be asked to perform some management tasks. You might be put on a project as a project lead or a project coordinator or a project manager. You might be given some supervisory or lead worker duties. You might be a shift manager. Or you might, like a shift supervisor type of situation. There might be some kind of small group management that you'd be put in charge of. And I want you to be prepared to take on some kind of leadership role in the event that you're given some kind of leadership role. Now, obviously, when you're first entering a company as a computer training and support specialist, for the very first time as an entry-level job, they're most likely not going to give you any kind of leadership role, just while you're getting your feet wet. But, if you can prove yourself and do a good job, who knows where you'll be within 3 months, 6 months, a year, as you kind of work up the ladder. We've talked about the tiered support system. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4. You start out at Tier 1. Pretty much everybody starts out at Tier 1. Tier 1 being the front lines. But if you can prove yourself, you might move up in the tier system. And as you move up into the tier system, oftentimes you receive some new responsibilities. So the idea behind today is to get you to understand kind of the perspective of the people who are already in those positions, who have those responsibilities, and to kind of get you prepared for the day when maybe you will have some of those responsibilities yourself. Hopefully you won't be at the help desk level, Tier 1 support level forever. Eventually you do move up the ladder. Because ideally, I want you to be the world's best boss when you get to that point. It might be 5 years down the line when you've proved yourself, when you've shown your supervisors and everyone that you have what it takes to take on a management role and be in a management position. But when that day comes, and you take on the role of a supervisor or a boss, and you can't see me because this is a live stream and I don't have a camera on me, but I am doing finger quotes when I'm, saying the word boss here. I want you to be the world's best boss when you enter into that kind of position. And it comes from, perspective, and it comes from knowledge. And ideally, that's what we want to have today. So when we're talking about managerial concerns, we have some big things that the management of a user support staff or a help desk has to concern themselves with. These are the big overarching things. They might not be, if you have a help desk job or a, user support or computer support job, they might not be your direct supervisor's immediate concerns. Not all of them anyway. But at some point along the managerial train, what we have here are the primary managerial concerns, and we have 5 of them. And our managerial concerns are mission statement, support services budget, user support staffing, training for user support staff, and performance measures. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to take each one of these and I'd like to kind of break them down just a little bit and talk about them just a little bit. So let's talk about the user support mission statement. And really, the mission statement is the biggest deal for all of the managerial concerns. Everything else that the manager sort of does reflects back to the mission statement. So what is a mission statement? A mission statement is a set of guiding principles that communicate support goals and objectives to staff, users, and management. Now let me say that again. The guiding principles that communicate support goals and objectives to whom? To staff, to users, and to management. So these aren't just expectations for the staff. These aren't just expectations, for what we want to do for users. These are expectations for staff. These are expectations for users. And these are expectations for management. All three levels, all three different stakeholders in our mission as a help desk or as a support center. And these are going to be different depending on where you go. Your various supervisors are going to have a different vision for what they expect from a help desk or from a support center based on a different mission statement at each institution, at each organization that you go to. So I have an example of a mission statement here. Example, the mission of a user support group is to maximize operational efficiency among users in an organization by providing timely resolution to technology use questions, effectively manage problems to continuously improve quality of support services to users, usability of information systems, effectiveness of documentation and training, and user satisfaction with support services. Now, this whole thing is the mission statement. And we can go through this mission statement and we can pick out things that the staff can expect, things that the users can expect, and things that the management can expect or expectations thereof based on this one mission statement. So let's kind of break it down a little bit. Maximize operational efficiency among users in an organization by providing timely resolution to technology use questions. So when you read that, what can users expect? Well, it says maximize operational efficiency among users in an organization by providing timely resolution to technology use questions. So according to this part of the mission statement, users can expect to have their technology use questions answered in a timely manner or resolved in a timely manner. That's an expectation that the users can draw from this mission statement. So based off of that, what can staff expect? Well, they can expect to have to provide that service. They can expect to have to provide timely resolution to technology used questions. So that's an expectation for users or for staff based on this first part of the mission statement. And what about management? What can management What kind of expectations can management draw from this first part of the mission statement? Maximize operational efficiency. If we remember back to our managerial concerns, performance measures is a managerial concern. And these performance measures are going to be based on the mission statement. In the mission statement, we are creating this performance measure of operational efficiency, and we want to see it maximized. So this managerial concern of performance measures is being drawn out here. And we want to see it maximized. That's our managerial concern. That's our expectation from management based on this first statement, this first part of this mission statement. Just in this one sentence in this mission statement, we're already pulling out expectations for staff, expectations for users, expectations for management. And we only do that even further in this last part of the mission statement. Effectively manage problems to continuously improve. In that sentence alone, we're talking about effective management, effective problem solving, and continuous improvement. Those are both things that we can attribute to staff and management expectations. And then in our final 4 bullet points here, we can also give these to user expectations as well. Quality of support services to users. So users can expect quality support services. Users can expect usable information systems. Users can expect effective documentation. Users can expect to be satisfied with support services. 100% satisfaction 100% of the time. But then we have staff expectations in providing all of this, and we have management expectations in providing the managerial concerns for performance measures, for the training in order for the staff to provide all of this, in order to be able to staff everybody, in order to be able to meet the user expectations, in order to be able to provide the budget, in order to meet the user expectations that are created by this mission statement. So when we're talking about the mission statement as a managerial concern, going forward, what we need to do is we need to remember that all of the other managerial concerns are supported by and bolstered by the mission statement. For example, budgeting. A budget is a financial plan a manager prepares. You might do some financial planning, you might do some budgeting in your own household. Extrapolate that to being concerned with, the well-being of a business organization where you're having to pay people's salaries as well. What you're doing with the budget is you're essentially translating your goals that are in your mission statement into a strategy to meet said goals. Where I'm going to put my budget, where I'm going to put my money the most is in the areas that I need it to go in order to meet the goals outlined by my mission statement. If I'm putting money into other things that are not outlined as a goal in the mission statement, if I'm putting money into other things to these goals' detriment to the goals of my mission statement, then I'm mismanaging the budget of my help desk, of my training center. Now we have several budget categories. We have income and we have costs. And income is revenue. Income is the money that you bring in. So you provide support services, you get paid for that. That's income. That's revenue. Costs are everything that goes out. So you pay your staff, that's your personnel. You buy supplies, tools, parts, software, everything you need. You buy third-party services. You pay for your overhead, your facilities, your utilities bills, all that sort of stuff. All of those are expenses. Ideally, when you're creating a budget, you want to make sure that you're bringing in more money than you're paying out. You're bringing in more revenue than you have in expenses. And you want to take those expenses and you want to prioritize your budget in terms of your mission statement goals. We have factors that influence support budget, the kind of users that are supported, whether they're internal users or external users. Remember that internal users are users that work also for the same company that the help desk works for. External users being outside customers, outside clients. How the services are provided, whether they're face-to-face, whether they're telephone, whether they're email, whether they're web-based support. The range of services provided, whether it's full service, whether it's partial service, whether it's just a telephone hotline. The number of service workers or support workers that you need impacts that also, with more support workers, you have to have more supervisors to oversee all the support workers. The cost of the facilities and all your overhead, all the utilities, water, power, all that kind of fun stuff. And then you have the kind of expenses, I call them. They're one-time capital outlays. We need to make a big purchase one time for something versus an ongoing expense. Everything else, with the exception of that last bullet point, is an ongoing expense that we can kind of plan for. But occasionally, you have to make a one-time big purchase that you kind of have to keep some money in reserve for just in case. In the event that happens, you want to make sure that you have money there that you can make those payments with and buy that stuff that you need with, so that you can, get the stuff that you need that supports that mission statement, that continues that business forward. Common sources of revenue, bringing in money, fees for services, subscription fees, per seat fees, service level agreements, support bundled into a product price. So sometimes, you buy a product and it has support that comes with it, but really the product was marked up a little bit to compensate for support. Hardware repair income, and then other revenue sources, like if you provide outside training to other companies, if you sell materials, if you sell hardware, software, other types of accessories. And materials, when you sell materials here, I'm talking about training materials, documentation, that sort of thing. So training's actually like doing physical training, and the materials being like documentation and online training and materials and that sort of stuff. Common support expenses. There are personnel expenses. You got to pay your staff. When you pay your staff, typically you're also providing them benefits, paid leave, taxes, recruiting, actually having to go out and find people. That also includes then education, training, staff development. All that costs money too. But one of the best things about paying for training, paying for professional education, is that you really want to have an educated workforce working for you. The more education that you're willing to provide your employees, the better employees that you get, the better able that they are to actually support that mission statement that we talked about earlier. And then all the overhead costs of supervision, accounting, administration, human resources, all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes to ensure that that person can keep working. Common support expenses, we'll just kind of gloss over this one because we're running short on time. It's just all the other kind of stuff that you need to kind of keep everybody comfortable and keep the facility up and running. Like you need furniture, you need custodial services, you need equipment, you need all that kind of stuff. Let's talk about staffing a minute. And staffing is kind of tough. It's a big challenge to figure out what you really need when you're staffing a help desk. The big question when you're staffing a help desk is how many people do we need on a help desk staff? How many help desk staff are needed to meet the level of service demands efficiently? We need sufficient staff to meet the demand for timely responses to incidents. And we also need to staff at a level which avoids idle agents and unproductive payroll expenses. So we want to make sure that things are getting done and they're getting done quickly. But we also want to make sure that nobody's just kind of sitting around waiting on things to happen. Because then we're just paying people for sitting there, and that's not really ideal. And we can, there's algorithms and things out there that kind of help us figure this out. We have something called an Erlang, which is a unit of traffic, such as user incidents, in a given period. We can do Erlang calculations to estimate the number of help desk agents that are required to meet peak and off-peak incident volumes. So if we know that we experience more support calls during certain times, we can do some Erlang calculations to say that, okay, during these peak hours, we need X amount of support staff on hand, and during these off-peak hours, we need Y amount of support agents on hand. And while it is an algorithm and it is math, it's not an exact science, just because you can kind of use some predictive analytics to try to figure some things out, it doesn't mean things are going to exactly work out. If you're going to mess up, you always want to mess up in favor of the mission statement. If you mess up and have one or two people that didn't really have anything to do one day, that's better than messing up and being understaffed for an extended period of time and leaving with unhappy, unsatisfied clients. Not ideal. Not ideal. So when managers are considering making staffing level decisions, they look at volume of incidents, they look at the type of incidents. Information requests, they can be handled fairly quickly and easily. Problem solving takes a longer amount of time. So you might want to have more people on hand if you're having more problem solving incidents than you are for more information request incidents. The variation in incidents, if there's a lot of similar incidents, they can be handled quicker and more efficiently than a wide array of incidents. And the experience level of staff. If you have a relatively inexperienced level of staff, they're going to take longer to do things than experienced workers who are trained and ready to go. I talk a little bit about recruiting help desk agents. I'm going to go over this really quickly because I want to get on to some other stuff, and I'm only going to take about 5 more minutes of your time here. When I'm talking about recruiting help desk agents here, I'm really talking about finding and hiring new help desk agents. So you're using the mission statement again. You're using the mission statement as a foundation for a lot of other things, as a budget, as a basis, or you're using the mission statement and budget as a basis for planning staffing needs. You want to analyze the KSAs, or knowledge, skills, and abilities of the position. Only after you've analyzed those knowledge, skills, and abilities needed are you going to write the position description. And ideally, you want to analyze the KSAs every time because, this is a position, IT is constantly changing. And a help desk role evolves a little bit as time goes by. So there might be one or two things that you might need to do now that you maybe didn't need to do 6 months ago. Prepare advertising and recruiting for opening positions. Screen the applicants for the best match of KSAs. Interview applicants for best match of KSAs. And then check applicant employment referrals. Or references, rather. User support staff training. Again, staff training is important. You want highly educated people working for you. Of course, the better trained your people are, the more likely they are to, because we've talked before about how help desk and support staff, is an entry-level kind of job in the IT industry. So, if you have a highly trained, super intelligent support staff, then you run the risk of them all leaving you for higher paying jobs. However, you also get a really good, really qualified support staff that is going to do their best. They're going to be the best qualified to help you meet the goals of your mission statement, which is ideal. But something important to note as we're talking about training support staff is that we're not just talking about training them on technical stuff. There's a lot more than just all the technical questions and all that kind of stuff that somebody going into a tech support position would need to know. And it's organizational structure type stuff. How's this organization laid out? Who are the important managers? Who's my direct supervisor? Who do I need to report to? Who do I need to ask questions to? What's this organizational culture like? How are things handled here? What are the benefits of being an employee? What are my benefits? What's payroll like? How is workflow handled? What are the policies and procedures of this job? What are the specific job tools that are used here? What kind of ticketing system do you use? Here at Cleveland Community College, we use CASE. If you go somewhere else, if you get a job here and you use CASE and get used to CASE, then you go somewhere else and get a job somewhere else. They might use a completely different ticketing system that you'd have to get acquainted to. How will my performance be appraised? How will I be assessed? What professional development or career path opportunities might I have? All of these things are questions that you should be trained on in time. They're not necessarily things that you need to ask about up front, but they should be things that you're receiving training on. And as a manager, they should be things that you're training your people on. And then there's ongoing training. Again, because, this type of industry changes. It changes a lot. You want to stay ahead of trends. Keep current with changes in technology. Help desk tools. So you attend conferences, you go to training sessions, you do workshops, you read blogs and other trade publications. Maybe you prepare for and take certification exams, because that's just going to make you more valuable as you enter into the workforce, going to other places. Another one of the things that that's a managerial concern is performance measures or performance statistics. And we'll end up here today. So as a manager, you're going to be examining performance measures or performance statistics. And performance statistics are most useful when compared across times of the day, days of the week, or months to display the trends over time. So what you want to do is you want to compare like times to like times. You can't really compare peak times to off-peak times because that's not going to provide you with vital data. You have to compare peak times with peak times and off-peak times with off-peak times. And look at those metrics in comparison with one another. And we can take these performance statistics and we can compute them for an entire support organization, for just a help desk team, or for a single employee. You know, if we're doing everything right, if we're ticketing like we should, if we're keeping good documentation like we're supposed to be doing, these performance statistics are easy to get. They're easy to analyze. They're easy to use. And we can break it down for everybody, for just a few people, or for just one person. And we can compare these supports. We can compare these performance statistics, these performance measures, against our mission statement and the goals of our mission statement. And we can see any of the deficiencies that arise, places where we're inefficient, maybe where we could use a little bit more budget in that area to kind of help us out, to justify the need and budget for more support services in a particular area, or maybe more training in a particular area. Maybe we need another person. Maybe we need more training. Maybe we need more tools. Maybe we need a better ticketing system. Maybe we need X, Y, or Z. We use our performance measures in conjunction with our mission statement. We analyze those together, see where we're deficient, see where we're working well. If we have some deficiencies that can be helped out with budget, we can use that to justify budgetary needs for support services. So that's where we're going to stop for the day. I think I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to cover for today. So I hope you all got some good information about what it might be like to be a support manager, a help desk manager, a help desk supervisor. It is a tough job and there's a lot of stuff to cover. Once again, as we wrap up, I want to remind you all to try to make it to the advising day, October 28th at 10:30 a.m. Please come. If you have any questions, I'm going to hang out in the chat for just a minute and answer questions in the chat. Let the music play for just a minute. But with that, that's all I have for this week. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next time.